Welcome to EO Talks, Eastern Oregon's very own talk show, only here on EOAlive.
Okay, please introduce yourself and tell us about the office you're running for.
Okay, my name is Rae Perkins, and I'm running for the United States Senate to displace Senator Ron Wyden. He's been in Washington, D.C. for 41 years now, and it's time for him to retire and go fishing or something. So I'm running for the U.S. Senate, one, because I totally know that it is the calling that is on my life for the season in my life. And it is time that we have somebody who is willing to stand up and say, no, no, no. No to all of this federal government overreach, no to violating the Constitution. Every candidate takes an oath of office, every elected person takes an oath of office to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. In defending that Constitution, it means that you're also going to follow what the Constitution says the role, in this case, of the Congress is. And little education, Congress is both houses, the U.S. House of Representatives and the Senate. And so we have to have somebody that's willing to say no. If a bill is unconstitutional, I will unequivocally say no. And that means if there's anything in the bill that is not the role of the federal government to do, I have to vote no. But I will say yes to your liberty and yes to your freedom every single time, as long as there's nothing in that bill that violates the Constitution. But it's time that we get our country back, and it is about we the people, not they the government.
Can you tell us more about what you do professionally?
Professionally, I am running full time. I do not have any other job that I do in addition to running. This is a full-time endeavor. Our state and our country is too important for this to be a part-time work around it venture. My background, however, is so varied. My professional background has been in the financial services industry. At one point, I held 6 different investment licenses. I do have property and casualty insurance licenses that right now are inactive, and I expect them to remain inactive. I have been a real estate agent. I've been a personal banker. I worked at Oregon State University in the Animal and Rangeland Science Department for a couple of years in the front office, helping faculty and staff and students with whatever needed to be done. And I've worked in the retail industry, so it's a very varied background that I have.
Can you tell us a little more about your public service and political background? And I think you've served on Linn County Republicans and the Albany Human Relations Commission.
Yes, I have. So my political background, so I have run in the past for the U.S. Senate nomination. In fact, I was the nominee in 2020 against Senator Jeff Merkley. And in that race, in the primary, there were 4 candidates, and I won in a landslide, which a friend of mine said it was a landslide. I didn't even think about it that way. And the reason they said that is because I won the most votes in all of Oregon's 36 counties. Last time that happened was in 2008, when then Senator Gordon Smith had a primary opponent. And then I went on in the general election and received the most total votes ever received by a Republican nominee in Oregon history, number 2 in percentage when we compare Republicans to Democrats. I have also run for Congressional District 4 in the past, but my calling is to be in the Senate. I have served as the chair for the Linn County Republican Central Committee. I have been a delegate. Right now I'm an alternate delegate. I have served at the platform convention as a delegate, a bonus delegate, and I have chaired a couple of the sections in the platform working on the planks, and planks are statements. So when you go on, if you go online to Oregon.gop, you can find our platform that's there. And I also have been involved with the Linn County Republican Women. I was years ago the president of the LCRW, and I am currently a member of the LCRW. And I have served locally in different areas, different events here in Albany. I was on the board for many years of the Albany Visitors Association, for a very short time on the Albany Human Relations Commission, and was involved with a huge event here in Albany called the Northwest Art and Air Festival. I did that, including the Legacy event, for 29 years. I've coached softball when my daughter was in middle school, and just have been involved in several other areas. Used to be Rotarian. So that's just some of my background in both politically and civically.
Oh, can you go a little bit more in depth about your personal biography?
A little bit more in depth about my personal biography. Oh my. So I gave you some of my background already. I live in Albany with my husband, George. We are getting ready to celebrate 44 years of marriage. So by the time you see this recording, we might have already celebrated that. March 18th will be our wedding anniversary. We have 2 children, and they have blessed us with a total of 11 grandchildren. The oldest is 21. The youngest is about 7 months old. And my husband is a carpet installation contractor. So we're just Main Street Americans. We are not uber wealthy. My husband works hard, and we're just everyday people, just like most everybody else out there that I will be your senator for. And I've talked about some of my background as far as employment and career type of things. I do have, as far as education, I have a Bachelor of Science from Oregon State University. My major is political science with a minor in speech communication. From the University of Portland, I have a certificate in financial planning from the Pamplin School of Business. I have a 2-year business degree from Lynn Benton Community College. So that's my education background as well.
Now, can you tell me more about your community of Albany?
My community of Albany. Well, Albany is a growing town. Used to be called Hub City at one point, if I remember correctly. The founders of Albany, the Monteith brothers, they were hoping that it would be the state capital. Albany, Oregon is named after their hometown of Albany, New York. Interesting note, Highway 20 runs through Albany, Oregon, and actually, from what I understand, goes to Albany, New York. I haven't verified that fact, but that's what I was told by my pastor, so I didn't verify it. Anyway, Albany is about 50,000 people. It's primarily blue-collar town. We are located about 12 miles from Corvallis. Our industries here have changed over the years. At one point, we were a leader in the rare metals manufacturing industry. Huacheng is technically in Millersburg, which is right next door, Teledyne Huacheng. But we've had several rare metals companies, some of which are still here, where they produce titanium, hafnium, niobium, columbium, and those are metals that go into making aircraft and military equipment as well. Lynn Benton Community College is in Albany, and we are right on I-5, just about 25 miles south of Salem. And the freeway bisects Albany as we grow eastbound out into the urban growth boundary. But it's a great town. We've got a lot of community events here. The Willamette River goes through Albany, separates North Albany, which is in Benton County, from the rest of Albany, which is in Lynn County.
Now, as you talk to Oregonians, which federal issues are you hearing them say they want the next U.S. Senator to focus on?
Oh my gosh, there's actually 10 of them, but I won't list all 10. They're on my website, perkinsforussenate.vote. When I polled people last year, I asked them what they were most concerned about. The number one issue by far was election integrity. Everybody wants to make sure that their vote is counted properly. And this is not a Republican or Democrat issue. This is I'm an American issue, and we should never, ever have to question if our votes were properly counted. We should know that they are properly counted and secure. So that by far has been number one. Being pro-life, I've had a lot of people say life. We've got to stop this abortion nonsense. Here in Oregon, a person can have an abortion up until the moment the baby is born, if you can believe such a crazy thing. But our legislators approved that in 2019, and the governor signed that into law. The out-of-control spending that has been taking place in DC for far too long, kicking the can down the road, increasing the debt limit ceiling, looking at things like the Congressional Pig Book, which I have the 2021 Congressional Pig Book Summary, which goes over pork, putting into bills spending that number one is not related to the main bill, and number two is not even constitutional. So those have been major issues among people. They want the federal government to be reduced to push back on the overreach of the federal government. They want the federal government off of our property. The Constitution says that the federal government can only own 10 square miles plus any land that is purchased with the consent of the state legislators for specific uses, mainly ports, forts, docks, arsenals, and other needful buildings, which includes postal roads and post offices. So the fact that the federal government owns land, quote unquote, with the U.S. the U.S. Forest Service, Bureau of Land Management, Fish and Wildlife, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, they're encroaching on the rights of Oregonians. One of the areas that Oregonians are very concerned about are the forest fires that happen year after year. Most of those devastating forest fires are in the quote-unquote U.S. forests. And the reason of that is because the U.S. Forest Service has not been properly managing the lands. The undergrowth which fuels the fires has not been taken care of. They have decided that they cannot afford to maintain the forest roads any longer. So getting out there to fight the fires has been a challenge because the roads are covered over with debris, with fallen logs, overgrowth, etc. So we need to get the federal government off of our land. They're telling our ranchers where they can ranch and where they can't ranch in violation of contracts, in violation of agreements that go with the property. And for example, the Bureau of Land Management started cutting off the watering holes that that Mr. and Mrs. Hammond over in Burns, Oregon, have legal title to for their cattle. And so the BLM decided that they were going to fence off the watering hole. It wasn't only just for the cattle, it was for any other wildlife that's out there that doesn't fly and can't jump over a fence. And this is what the out of control federal government has done. They don't own that land. And that has been a huge issue to our ranchers, to our farmers. They're also, with our farmers and ranchers, they're concerned about the wolf population and what environmentalists are saying. And what happens is the wolves go in and they start killing the cattle and the sheep. We also have problems with environmentalists where they are claiming that certain animal species are endangered, and they will put a whole lot of animals on a request to have them put on the threatened or endangered species list. And the government has a specified number of days where they have to do the research and approve or disapprove. And so what happens is these environmental groups overwhelm the system, put multiple numbers of animals on that list, and then the powers that be just do a blanket approval. And that needs to stop. It should be one species of animal with the proof that, yes, they are threatened or endangered in order for the government to look at it. But I question, is that a federal issue or a state issue? So again, anything that is a state issue needs to go back to the states. Our forests need to go to the counties. And if there is a fire out there, then they need to send the forest fighters out there immediately instead of waiting to figure out what bureaucracy is going to pay for the cost of fighting those fires. We all know the fire isn't going to stop and wait for someone to decide. The fire is going to do what the fire does, and that's grow. So that's another reason, outside the fact of constitutionality, that we've got to get control of our land. And people here in Oregon want that land managed locally and owned locally and not controlled by bureaucrats that have virtually zero connection to Oregon. So that's just some of the issues that people have brought up to me here in Oregon. And again, I have all the issues are on my website, perkinsforussenate.vote.
Now, who is your favorite Oregon historical figure?
I would have to say probably Jason Lee. He was a circuit riding preacher, and there's actually a statue of him up at the state capitol.
Now, what are the primary sources of your personal values?
I'm a Christian, and my primary values come from from the Word of God, and I stand on the Word of God. I believe that that is the best source that we can use, and we all have within ourselves that innate knowing of right and wrong. And so with that, and with the Word of God, and hearing in my heart what I should be doing or not doing, is what I stand on. And so that's where my value system is.
Do you anticipate any potential criticisms from your opponents, and do you have any responses to potential criticisms you might face?
Well, I'm sure that they're going to criticize me. That's hopefully not in the primary. So far, we've done pretty good. All of us that are in the primary of, I think, as far as I know, not criticizing each other. If they want to criticize, they can criticize. If they are going to say an untruth, I will push back on that. But we all bring different skill sets to this election. However, when it comes to Senator Ron Wyden, I'm sure that he's going to have things that he will criticize me for, and I definitely have a lot of things that I will criticize him on, and it is time for him to retire.
Now it's time for our world-famous lightning rounds. First off, ducks or beavers?
Ducks or beavers? Both, unless they are playing each other. If they're playing each other, it's the beavers.
Alrighty. What is your favorite place in Oregon?
Oh my gosh. Oregon, this has been the fun part of running for the U.S. Senate. One of the most amazing parts, in addition to meeting people, is I have been blessed with being able to see so much of Oregon. The Wallowas, Lake Wallowa. Oh my gosh, it's absolutely gorgeous over there. I love seeing the Painted Hills out there. Of course, those are both in Eastern Oregon. The coast is absolutely amazing. I have hundreds of pictures of the coast, the rocks, and just watching the waves crash up against them. And then, of course, the Cascade Mountain Range is so there is no one favorite. Oh my gosh, I couldn't pick a favorite. There's just too much to love about Oregon.
Gotcha. What is your favorite Oregon-based food or beverage?
Oh, I would have to say, oh my gosh. Well, I don't eat it very often, but Dairy Gold ice cream is yummy. Tillamook yogurt is excellent, and I eat a fair share of that. So I'd have to go with those two items.
Alrighty. And last off, what is your favorite place in Eastern Oregon?
Oh, my favorite place in Eastern Oregon. See, again, how do I narrow that down? I mentioned the Painted Hills. I mentioned the Wallowas and Lake Wallowa out there in Joseph. And those are just absolutely beautiful areas. So I'm just going to have to say that's going to be a tie.
Last up, do you have any final thoughts for our viewers? And can you let them know where they can get in touch?
Yes. So if you want somebody that's a mama bear, that does not have a problem with pushing back against the rhinos, against the deep state, against people who think that this is a democracy and don't realize that this is a republic, which, if you'll recall your history, Benjamin Franklin is quoted as saying, it's a republic if you can keep it, and we must fight to save our republic. And there is a difference. A democracy is more mob rule, and a republic is representation. And I will represent you honestly and with transparency. And I know that word is used, unfortunately, too often. My promise to you, my staff and I will read every bill before I vote on it. We will divide the bill up, and we will each take a section. And what we are going to be looking for is we're going to be looking to making sure that the bill is 100% constitutional, and not constitutional in a way where they have to kind of squeeze it in, trying to put a square peg into a round hole, but really absolutely unquestionably constitutional. If we find that a bill has unconstitutional items in there, if I cannot get those removed, I will absolutely vote no. It is time that, again, we have people that are in the Senate and in the House of Representatives that are going to stand up and say no. The job description is in our Constitution. If we do not have sufficient time to read the bill, should they plop a 2,500-page bill on our desk, on my desk, and say it's being voted on tomorrow, I'm going to automatically vote no. There's no discussion on that whatsoever. I will always vote pro-life. I believe that life begins at conception and should end naturally. I will not vote to increase the debt ceiling. Friends, our country is in way too much debt. We cannot afford it. I will not ever vote to send money to those countries that want to annihilate us. And I continue to look in the Constitution to see where that's even constitutional. I will, as a senator, we are responsible for approving the appointments of the president, including any Supreme Court appointments and federal judges. And I will make sure, and other positions in office in the bureaucracies, and I will make sure that these are absolutely American loving people that are going to follow the Constitution. Those are my promises to you. I ask in return three things. Number one, your prayers, not just for me, but pray for all the candidates. It's a lot of work. Many of us are out there traveling the state or traveling the district or cities or counties, and we're on the road a lot. So prayers for our safety are greatly appreciated. I ask for your vote, of course. I know that without a doubt that I can and will unseat Senator Ron Wyden. And then I ask for your financial support. I'm very frugal with the donations that come in. As a financial planner, I have the fiduciary responsibility of due care with my clients' money, and I will bring that with me. And I use that today, that when I'm spending money, campaign money, I'm very careful what I spend the money on, what my campaign team spends the money on. So whether it's $1 or up to the maximum of $2,900, I'm grateful for absolutely everything that comes in. And you can go to my website, perkinsforussenate.vote, click on the donate button if you would like to make a donation. And if you have any questions, you can email me, JoRae, JoRae @perkinsforussenate.vote, and I will get back to you. If you call the number that's on the website, 541-730-3570, that will go directly to my voicemail, and then I will check the messages and I will give you a call back. But emailing always works good. I check the email at least once a day, sometimes 3 or 4 or 5 times a day. Just depends on what I'm doing throughout the day. But I do answer all of my emails personally. And so again, I ask you for your support, and I thank you for listening. Have a wonderful and blessed day. My name is JoRae Perkins, your candidate for the United States Senate.